in. There we go. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is now breakout session 4. You are in room 5, and our session today is quick and easy ways to incorporate retrieval practice with Diana Walker, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Thank you so much, Kat. I am Diana Walker. I work with Northwest Regional Professional Development in all things literacy and all things English language learners, and more recently this year also incorporating retrieval practice, which I am super excited about. So thank you for being here with me today. So this is just a quick agenda of the 50 minutes. It's not much time, so we'll go through each of these quickly. We're going to spend about 10 minutes or so going over retrieval practice. So we have a common vision, a common definition of what that is. I have a resource tablet for you to be able to spend, and we'll do at least 10 minutes, we might even have up to 20. That's designed to show you, have templates around quick and easy ways to incorporate retrieval practice into the classroom. We'll take a little time to share ideas. And then there are some tips and tricks that go with retrieval practice that we'll talk about. Our focus for the day is defining retrieval practice, exploring examples and resources, and then brainstorming ways so that you can walk away with an idea that's ready or almost ready to go. Before we get started though, let's do a quick brain test. This is one of the retrieval practices, and all it is this. In your mind, or if you have notes next to you and you like to write things down, we're going to take 30 seconds and come up with everything that you can think of related to retrieval practice. What is it? What does it look like? How does it look in your mind? Okay, this is me being quiet for 30 seconds. If you are comfortable, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat, how was that for you? A 0 is, well, retrieval practice is new to me and that's why I'm here. A 1 is, I kind of have a little bit of an idea, but 30 seconds kind of felt a little long. And then 2 is, oh, I got it. I could have kept thinking about retrieval practice. We are a small but mighty group, so if you want to share, you can. Thank you. Thanks, Victor. Okay, so this is the first activity around retrieval practice, and it brings up this really great point. With retrieval practice, we can't do it on new content. It has to be content that kids have had at least initial exposure to. Let's go into an overview. Retrieval practice is designed for something to pull out something that's already in your mind. So that high quality initial instruction you do for kids is still essential. It doesn't replace it, it's what comes after that. The stronger the primary memory or that initial learning, the more effective the retrieval practice can be. It doesn't mean that learning has to be complete though, or that kids have to have a really deep understanding of it. They just have to have that initial exposure, that initial learning around the content. So what is retrieval practice? It refers to the act of recalling learned information from memory with little or no support. So every time information is retrieved, or an answer is generated, there's a change in the brain. It actually changes the original memory and makes it stronger. Why does it work? I pulled this quote from Robert Bjork: using memory shapes your memory. The act of going into your mind and retrieving it makes it stronger, it makes it clearer, and it deepens your understanding. So at the beginning of a learning episode, there's a dendrite, right? It's singular, there's no off yet. During the learning episode, learning happens. They get that primary memory. What happens though is within 48 hours, if there's active review or some deliberate practice, that level of learning deepens. The connections between the learning is greater. Okay? So that act of practicing or that act of retrieving solidifies the learning. It makes it stronger in our long-term memory, and it eases the access of retrieval. I don't know about you guys, but that I've taught it, but why aren't they telling me or showing me that they've learned it? This is part of why, right? They have to be able to retrieve it to do that. When we talk about retrieval practice, we talk about low scaffold and high scaffold. Okay, there was a comment in the chat. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little hard to hear you for me, but there's some fuzziness in the background a little bit, and then the voice seems kind of soft to me, but I don't know if others are experiencing that same thing.
I think that we
Yeah, they are too, seems like.
Okay.
I thought it was just my ears.
Is that better?
That's better, yeah. I thought it was just my ears from years of teaching middle school, you know. That piercing scream they reach just kind of does some damage.
It's we have a little bit of trouble with technology sometimes. So thank you very much for putting that in the chat. Okay, so we think of low scaffold examples and high scaffold examples, but it's not the typical way that we define low scaffold or high scaffold. When we're talking retrieval practice, low scaffold means we're not giving them much of anything to support the retrieval. We're saying go into your mind and pull it out. So this example is called the retrieval practice placemat. If you notice, there's no content information on here at all. It simply asks them questions so that they can go back in and pull it out. The brain dump is another example of that. You give them very little information and they need to write down, draw, create, do graphics around what they remember about the topic. This is harder, yes, but what we're looking for with retrieval practice is the right level of hard. If it's too hard, it's frustrating. We don't want that. But if it's not hard enough, kids won't actually remember it. So we do want things to be a little bit hard. The younger your students, the more scaffolding. The older your students, the less scaffolding. Where you are in your unit too, as the unit goes on, you want to provide less and less scaffolding for them. Here are two examples of scaffolded retrieval tasks. The first one is a picture prompt. The pictures go with your content and they're designed to elicit that connection in the mind around your content. The second one is a challenge grid. The reason the challenge grid is considered a scaffolded example is because if you look at the questions or the vocabulary or the terms, they can work together and provide signals for the mind to attach onto the learning. Okay, so it's scaffolded because there's a whole lot of content information. That is retrieval practice defined. Next, we talk about spaced retrieval practice. So how does it look across the course of an instructional cycle or a unit? First thing we have to talk about is the forgetting curve. This is Ebbinghaus. There's a link that will be in the chat in just a minute to his Dr. John Whitman's full notes. He talks about the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve in a really lovely way. So this document is a nice resource if you would like more about the forgetting curve. Essentially though, what the forgetting curve is we teach a lesson. Kids get it. The exit ticket, it's looking good. We're excited. Right? The next day they come in and they don't remember what happened yesterday in class. Well, it turns out this is normal, that the forgetting happens and it's normal. When we review it, the next time we review it, they forget less. And when we review it again a little bit later, they forget less. And then when we review it again a little bit later, they forget less. So what the forgetting curve tells us is that one, forgetting is a normal part of the learning process, and that how we space out getting them to retrieve it matters. Next slide. This comes from a couple of different resources, right? There isn't consensus on the exact timing of when you should have kids retrieve or when you should review content information, with the exception of the next day. The research behind that is really strong. There's learning, they need to retrieve it the next day in order to get it into their long-term memory. The 3 days later, 1 week later, 3 weeks later, 3 months later, there's a little bit of variability in that. We do know that the next day is important. 3 days or 1 week are about the same. And then 2 to 3 months later. So in order to get the information into kids' long-term memory in a way that they can get it out again and keep getting it out again, there has to be spaced opportunities for them to pull that content out of their head, to pull that information out of their head. So if you notice in the top right corner, we've got the retrieval practice placemat. Spacing is inherent in this particular activity because it asks kids to go to the lesson before, to the week before, to 2 weeks before. It's the same with the retrieval practice challenge grid. In this, there's inherent spaced practice because it says last lesson, last week, 2 weeks ago, further back. On the left, the retrieval practice brain dump and the retrieval practice picture prompt don't have spacing inherent in them. As the teacher, what you would do is you would decide, oh, it's the next day. This is a good time to do a brain dump. Or this lesson today, we're going to deepen our understanding around these 3 ideas or these 3 concepts. So I'm going to do 3 pictures to have them do it. So you decide the spacing, and on the left too, spacing is inherent on the right. And we will go over in just a minute a little bit more deeply about what each one of these. So we're going to do a breakout room cat, if you wouldn't mind. I think 3 rooms will be great. Maybe even 2 rooms. Let's do 2 rooms. And I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to have the discussion. What did you hear that you can use? Where would spaced retrieval practice easily fit into your teaching? And what are your questions or challenges at this point around retrieval practice?
Did you want me to go ahead and open the rooms?
Yes, please. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay. They are open.
And am I able to, I know when I'm posting, I'm able to go from room to room. Am I able to do that with this, or do I need to destroy the room?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. Can I go from breakout room to breakout room?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I see where I can. All right. At 107, will you bring us all back?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is this better?
Yeah. And I just don't know how much of the hearing is my issue or sound issue.
You can hear me better though?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I don't have, I'm not using headphones, but if that's better, we're gonna do this.
Okay.
I will have trouble hearing though.
Okay.
Will you say something?
Oh, yeah, I did.
We're just gonna go without headphones. There's
Okay.
no one in the building, so we're good.
Do you want me to give them a 1-minute warning?
Yes, please. They were having good conversations in the breakout room. It's always hard to tell. And we're
Do
done.
you want me to bring them back? 107? Okay. Oh, it says all breakout rooms are closed in 53 seconds. I didn't realize it gave it a minute. Sorry about that.
It's okay. No worries at all. Yeah, I think we have all done that.
Yeah.
The conversations were good. So.
Well, that was actually my first time doing breakout rooms myself. So
Oh, you did great.
I learned something new today.
That's awesome.
I needed to learn it. I just, 25 seconds. Sorry about that.
No worries. We are done at 1:40 though. I want to make sure my pacing is okay.
Yeah, we're done at 1:40.
Thank you.
Yep, they're coming back.
You guys, welcome back. So we're going to look at post-retrieval feedback, a quick overview. So after retrieval practice, after you've done something where they haven't used their notes, they've had to go into their mind, they've had to pull it out, it will be very clear what they know, what they still kind of know, and what they don't know at all, right? So they need feedback, which is normally access to correct target information. When we think about what that feedback can look like or what that information can look like, oftentimes we put the pressure on ourselves as teachers that it's a retreat from us. And that's just not true anymore at all. That post-retrieval feedback can be, okay, I don't know this. So I'm going to go back into the text. I'm going to look at it again. I'm going to watch a short video that I have access to on the MLS platform. It might be because some of our kids just need us to do a reteach. It might be a reteach. Okay. It might be getting online and doing a quick little what is. Okay. So there's lots of options after the retrieval practice if kids realize they still need to study more or they need a reteach or the correct information. So post-retrieval feedback is access to reteach and extend. An example of that is after a low stakes or no stakes quiz, whether this is something you have them do on paper and flash the answers on the board, whether it's you use your MLS system that's lovely, a Google form or a Microsoft form or a Canvas quiz. They get the correct answers. They realize I don't know these three, and they self-correct and then access the following information for those problems or answers. So low stakes, no stakes quiz or problem. They can go back and then look at their notes. They can look at a work sample. They can ask their peer who got that one right. Can you explain this to me? There can be explanation videos or a teacher reteach if necessary. Example 2. So the challenge grid, that's the square with either words or questions or prompts on it. After they go through that, it will be very clear, right? They looked at that word and they have no idea what it meant, right? So they're like, okay, I know I need to study that one. They want to ask themselves the questions. What was easy? What did I kind of understand, but I know I still need to study because that did not feel very secure to me? And then what is still really confusing? And again, after the challenge grid, they can go back and look at notes, look at worked examples, talk to peers, and explanation videos and teacher reteach. Notes, worked examples, and peer discussions really are the ones that are incredibly effective, but also not time consuming and not as time consuming from the teacher perspective. Right? It gives us time as teachers maybe to reteach that small group that needs that. Okay, so let's play. What does that mean? There is a Padlet that the link will be in the chat. And so you guys, if that happens again, it's totally fine to just unmute and say, hello, your screen's not there. Because I could see a couple of faces and I knew something was wrong, but I have no idea what it was. So thank you for whoever put that in the chat. And next time, just unmute. It's fine. So let's just keep moving. Okay, so retrieval practice tasks to try. Because this is a digital learning summit, there's several online tasks. But the first one, retrieval grids, and the thinking and linking grids are pretty low tech. A retrieval grid. Will someone shake their head at me that they can see the Padlet coming up on the screen? Thank you. So retrieval grids are the grids, and you can, if you're a math teacher, it would be practice problems. If you're a history teacher, it might be people, dates, events. If you're an English teacher and it's a specific text that you're reading, it might be a combination of character and essential events or settings. But the retrieval grids are just that. It's 4x4, it's 8x8, it's 6x6. And what students do is they look at the box, they take the thing that prompts them, and they say whatever it is they know about that. So that's one of the things. There's a one-page explanation, and then there's 2 templates for you to look at. Thinking and linking grids are really similar, but instead of just going one box at a time, you have a box, you say everything you know, and then you either roll dice or you give student choice and they look at a second box. They say everything they know about that, and they have to link those 2 things. There's some really powerful revision learning that happens with the think and linking grid. So again, a one-page overview and then some templates for you to look at. Those are our 2 low-tech options. Oh, sorry, and then retrieval placemat is also a low-tech option. Same thing, one-page overview, and then something that can just be put on your communication board or whatever the way that you should do it. Carousel learning comes from the work of Adam Boxer, where he created an Excel spreadsheet so that he could have all of the questions for all of the units and then create spaced quizzes for them. His retrieval roulette is what he called it. His Excel spreadsheet is linked here. It is free. All you have to go in and do is replace his question with yours, and then you have spaced quizzes. He partnered with a pay company for Carousel Learning, which does the same thing, but you put in your own and there's a little bit more support. If you're very comfortable with Excel, you don't worry about messing up the equations, right? But if you're not that comfortable with Excel, something like Carousel Learning where you don't have to worry about it is there. There's a free version and a paid version. Quizzes is another one where it's an online quizzing thing that will help you do the spaced practice. And then Quizlet, hands up for Quizlet, right? I think all of us love Quizlet. The thing with Quizlet is this, is it's the working with the students and teaching them how to do the spaced part and also the no cheating part. So the last 3 are partnering with an online format to do retrieval practice. The more resources tab. So if you're like, yeah, I got that, I've seen those before, there's not one of those I really want to dive deeply into right now. There's a retrieval practice resource tab. It's got books around retrieval practice, websites. These websites also have things that you can download that are ready to go to talk to students about what retrieval practice is. The Learning Scientist is a fabulous resource website. YouTube resources, information about notes, more retrieval tasks, research that supports it, and then articles that are informational but not necessarily deep research articles. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the next 10 minutes. So at 1:26, we will come back together whole group for you to take some time. Look at the habits. See if there's anything in there that you can use. If there is, feel free to download it and start typing things in. Like the hope is that you walk away ready and excited to try something with your students. I'm here in the next 10 minutes and I will happily answer any questions over.
So I'm sorry, Diana, I missed those directions.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes. At 1:27, we will come back together. We're all going to stay here, but I'm going to be quiet for 10 minutes to give you time to explore the habits. Anything that you want on there, okay? And then if you have any questions, if you put it into the chat, so if anyone needs quiet, they can have it.
Thank you. So my husband's a high school band teacher, and so I put a question in there about, is there any specific retrieval practice that you recommend for music teachers? He teaches high school band, and it's frustrating. I know he expresses frustration with they get it, but they have like all the blocking and the marching and the playing, and then the next day it's like they didn't get any of it. Any practice you would recommend for him?
I'm going to type it into the chat. You guys, 2 more minutes. So if you are in the middle of something and you need a second to save it or find a way to get back to it, but we've got about 2 more minutes before we come back together. Okay, we're going to come back together and have a short discussion with, first of all, you are welcome to unmute and share anything that you're thinking, because we are not confined to these three things. To help us with the discussion though, how does this connect to what you already know? When I was listening in the breakout rooms, I heard lots of you guys making connections to things that are already happening in your classroom and making that decision around when is it going to be supportive and when am I going to let them use their note. So what connections are you making to what you already know and do? Are there any ideas that have extended your thinking on this topic? And is there anything that was challenging or confusing or anything that you wonder? So because we are a small group, you feel free to unmute and say something. Feel free to contribute in the chat. But connections that you're making, extensions to your current thinking, or anything that you find challenging. Any questions that you might have.
Diana, we're getting a bit of static again from your device or your mic.
Okay, say that again. I'm sorry, I had to take off my headphones, so I'm having trouble hearing you guys.
No. We were here. I was hearing at least some static again from your end. You're much better now. That went away. So,
okay.
and I totally heard the direction, so I'll just jump in and respond also. So I was a little bit familiar with retrieval practice from, I'm trying to think which organization. Is it retrievalpractice.org or one of those that I had been getting emails for quite a while and signed up, and I had sort of not followed it for a while. And really for me, the extension was some of the practical applications you provided. I had sort of the academic, intellectual background to it, but I really appreciated having some very practical things, the grids, the placemat. It gives me sort of a clearer way on how to think about implementing that. So that was just an extension to something that I already had some background with.
Yay, good. Okay, thank you for sharing it. Thank you, Imelda. Imelda talked about the placement. One of the things that I love about it is completely zero prep, right? Throw it up on the screen and there it is. Anything else? You're welcome. Oh, good. Yay. It's always exciting when you share resources and they get used.
I'm just curious if you talked to Chris Carroll or about the science people about some of these ideas that I was just reading a little bit from the Barack Rosenshine article that was one of the resources you posted about hands-on activities coming after the materials learned, and comparing this with what, when we're teaching science, the thought that we start with a phenomena to investigate. I'm just thinking about how how to use retrieval best in the science classroom. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I thought that was interesting as well, right? Because in science, there's the 5 E's. And there's in ELA, we talk about a language experience activity before we go into and looking at the academic. And I don't think we are going to have like a straight answer. And I think we're going to always have differences in what we think high quality pedagogy looks like. An experience and then attaching language to it and then attaching content learning, I think is still a really valid science teaching approach, right? But when we think about retrieval practice in science teaching, when you are teaching that vocabulary, how are you having them use it after that initial teaching. Or if you're having them read the text and pull the vocabulary from the text, the next day or 3 days later, how are you having them pull that up again? I do think certain content areas, pre-teaching that information, giving them something to retrieve, which is what retrieval practice is about, right? They have something to retrieve, and then you give them the task or the practice. So when you do the experience first, you are creating the thing that they will later retrieve. I think there are content areas that you can validly argue for teaching experience and then retrieve.
And at the same time, of course, to assess students' understanding, they have to put together what they think about what they've been doing. So retrieval is certainly involved. So
Yeah,
I'm sure I can find a good way to integrate it. Keep me posted. Keep us posted.
okay, so Kat was talking about, can you use some of this to gather information on students' initial understanding of a topic? Absolutely. It's the brain dump. You can do a grid, like start the unit with a grid, have a conversation with a partner. What anything on here, what connections can you make? Right? Especially when we think middle school and high school, they have some background typically on things. And what a great, like a single tool that you can use multiple times across a unit. I don't know about you, but like, can I do work once and use it 5 times? That makes me happy. So absolutely, yes. We have 6 minutes. There are some tips and tricks and pitfalls that I would like to just quickly go over and then wrap up our session together. So the tips and tricks. The first one is start small and easy, right? Like if you like the placemat, try the placemat. If you like the grid, maybe make a grid for 2 weeks of instruction. Right? And then as you figure out what it means for you and your students, maybe add more. Use your resources. If you've got a lovely question bank, why not do some low stakes tests with that? Low prep, high yield. Lots of retrieval practice is low prep, high yield. And so starting with the low prep. And then finally, it's phenomenal to me how many resources are out there on the internet that are like easy for us to download. Don't create something that already exists, right? Or like download something that you can change 2 things to and use a bunch. If you do a search for your content area and retrieval practice, there's a ton out there. There's math ones, there's science ones, there's social studies ones. So just adding your content area to a search will produce some resources. Pitfalls. Not explaining it to students, not telling them this is what we're doing it and why we're doing it and how it impacts your learning. Making it high stakes instead of low stakes. We are so tempted to grade things, right? Whereas with retrieval practice, if we keep it low stakes, it becomes a learning strategy instead of an assessment strategy. And that gets kids engaged. It takes their stress level down. There is a recommendation that in time you use different things. So use a placemat and a low stakes test and maybe a grid, right? So that there's a little variety in how they're doing it. Setting up retrieval practice so not everyone is forced to be involved. We want everyone involved in the retrieval task. Doing a retrieval task, having them figure out what they know, what they're still struggling with, and what they don't know, but then not giving them a chance for feedback or a chance to make those corrections and deepen understanding. And then using retrieval practice on content that hasn't been learned yet. It's something they have to be able to retrieve. Okay. Thank you, Kat, for that. We have just a couple of minutes left. I would like to try the waterfall response, and we are small, so it won't quite have, it'll be a trickle waterfall. In the chat, if you would please, and don't hit send yet, share something that you learned or that was reaffirmed, or one thing that you want to try. in the chat, and then I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, and we're going to have them all come up at the same time. And 3, 2, 1, go ahead and share. That's what works really well for you with a small group. Thank you guys for doing that. If there is a response that you would like to respond to, I think that would be awesome. And in the last 2 minutes that we have together, if you wouldn't mind making sure that you did your attendance so that you can get your hours. If you wouldn't mind filling out the session evaluation. And then if you do want more, if you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind spending a little bit of time on this with other people who are doing the same thing, there is a class and you get 2 books. You get 2 books. One book is a resource book. It's all retrieval tests. And then the other book is short and it's a good summary of like the background. It's going from October 16th to November 13th. It's a hybrid course, but not hybrid online face-to-face. It's all online, but it's part synchronous, part asynchronous. I guess hybrid is also online. But I'm super excited about it. So we have lots of teachers from different areas.
Thank you very much, Diana. I know we're just about right at time. I put the flyer link in the chat as well. We have the session survey link in there. Please take that. And then the reminder, we are in room 5, session 4, quick and easy ways to incorporate retrieval practice. And then the closing session starts right after the session. There isn't a 5-minute break this time. It starts right after. You're gonna want to get there to be eligible for those raffle prizes that we're going to give out. And then make sure you do the final event survey too, because that'll be one way we'll be able to give you those certificates of attendance for your hours for professional learning. All right, thank you very, very much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.